They said to my grandmother, Hattie Mae, this child sure can talk. She is the talkingest child we ever did see. The day I did that talk show, even though it was talking about different ice cream flavors, I felt like I'd come home. I felt like it was the most natural thing I'd ever done. If American women are lousy lovers, it is because their partners, American men, are lousy.
It takes two, yeah.
And so people would say, she's like me, she shares the same struggle, she's open about it.
How many Last Suppers have you all had in here?
And yet she's learned from it, she's gained wisdom, so I can learn from her too.
She knows how to listen.
I want to be a white Oprah.
You can get these.
Really? You want to be a white Oprah?
She listens not with just her head, she listens with her heart and soul.
You know, there's a stride that she has with life that is energizing to both herself and to other people. And that's what everybody wants.
You know, Oprah's a girl who does exactly what she wants, when she wants to do it. So it's sort of like, stay tuned.
(1950년대) 미시시피주 코시어스코 외곽에 위치한 농경지대에는 소규모의 흑인 농가가 모여 있었다.
It was a lot of gardens, a lot of cattle. Most of them had raised all their foods that they needed. We shop for very little. In fact, we had our own sugar cane, and we made all that stuff, syrups and everything. You weren't that close to each other because everybody had, like we had 40 acres of land and somebody else had maybe 150. You were long ways away from people. You didn't see them often. So you had to walk distance to see them.
53년 봄, 버넌 윈프리는 이곳에서 버니타 리와 짧은 사랑을 나눴다. 그가 군에서 막 제대했을 때였다. 그리고 2주 후, 그는 버니타의 임신 사실을 모른 채 알라바마로 돌아갔다. 그로부터 9달 후인 54년 1월 29일, 18살이었던 버니타는 딸을 출산했고 아이의 이름을 오프라라고 지었다. 그녀가 옷을 보내달라는 편지를 보냈을 때에야 버넌도 자신의 딸이 태어났다는 것을 알았다. 버니타는 딸을 자신의 가족이 있는 코시어스코에서 키우겠다고 했다. 어린 시절 오프라에게 가장 큰 영향을 준 사람은 외할머니인 해티 메리였다. 그녀는 손녀에게 책 읽는 법과 신에 대한 경외심을 가르쳤고 필요할 땐 매로 다스렸다. 워낙 엄했기 때문에 오프라는 호되게 매를 맞을 때가 많았다.
She was very strict. But somehow or another, Oprah got away with a lot of stuff that I didn't even get away with. But I guess it was because that was her first grandchild, and she was so proud of her, because my mother was. She loved Oprah so much. Oprah was a very sweet little girl as she was growing up, and she was very bossy. She had two favorite cousins that she played with, Lonnie and Willie Mack. But she always wanted to be the boss. And she was.
오프라가 4살이 됐을 때 버니타는 혼자서 코시어스코를 떠나 밀워키로 갔고 오프라는 외할머니, 외할아버지와 함께 자그마한 나무집에서 살았다. 매일 아침 옥외 화장실로 변기를 비우러 가는 것이 그녀에겐 무엇보다 두려운 일이었다.
I was always afraid of the outhouse. I was always afraid I was going to fall in. We had literally outhouse with a Sears catalog, you know, that smelled like hell, and literally like hell. And so I had little chores, emptying the slop jar, going to the well to draw water.
외가댁 근처에 있는 버팔로 장로교회의 신자들은 일요일마다 예배를 드리고 가는 길에 해트메의 요리를 맛보러 들르곤 했다.
My grandmother would bring around those chicken snacks, fry up a chicken. The preacher would come by and say, Hattie Mae, how many legs does this chicken have? Because she would just make chickens and drumsticks, and there'd be, you know, we were known for being the kind of family in the neighborhood where people would come by and eat, and anything my grandmother had, she would share it with other people, especially on Sundays.
해티메의 소녀인 오프라는 일찍부터 남 앞에서 얘기하고 주목받는 걸 좋아했는데 그녀가 처음으로 성경 구절을 낭독한 것도 겨우 3살 때의 일이었다.
And it was customary, part of the culture of that time in rural Mississippi and in other parts of the South, where children on special occasions would learn like little Easter, they called them pieces. Literally, they cut out a piece of paper from a book and would give you a piece to read. And from the earliest age, 3, I was doing Easter pieces and loved it, beginning of my broadcasting career. Loved being in front of people, dressed up, and being able to say my piece.
And they would say, Hattie Mae, you know she's a gifted little girl. That's what the other ladies would tell her.
어린 오프라는 교회에서 신도들에 둘러싸여 있을 때 가장 사랑받고 있다고 느꼈다.
When I look back at my growing up years there now, I feel that my grandmother and all the people there loved me the best way they knew how. But I was raised at a time where showing love to your children or embracing them or hugging them and certainly saying I love you was just completely out of the question. So I felt lonely a lot, but felt my sense of power, felt my sense of validation from the church, from being in front of other people.
그러나 외할머니가 몸져 눕게 되면서 더 이상 손녀를 돌볼 수 없게 되자 6살이 된 오프라는 정겨웠던 미시시피의 농장을 떠나 아무도 반겨주는 사람이 없는 밀워키로 가야만 했다.
My mother was a single woman. She already had one child and was boarding with a woman named Mrs. Miller in Milwaukee. And they really didn't have room for me because I think it was unexpected. And I moved in to live with my mother and Mrs. Miller, and there wasn't room for me. So I sort of slept out in the little foyer, little porch, little screened-in porch. And my mother and sister slept inside. Mrs. Miller didn't like me because of the color of my skin. Mrs. Miller was a light-skinned black woman who did not like darker-skinned people. And my half-sister is light-skinned, and she was adored. And it was never something that was said to me, but I absolutely understood that she is adored because she is light-skinned and I am not. And that was just sort of accepted. And I was sort of the outcast and sort of put out there on the porch, and I used to have nightmares every night.
가정부였던 오프라의 어머니는 아무리 열심히 오랜 시간 일을 해도 자신과 두 아이의 생계를 유지할 수가 없었다.
I remember there were some times when there wasn't food in the house. I remember specifically drinking, not having any milk in the house, and using some grape Kool-Aid, pouring grape Kool-Aid over my cornflakes. And I remember complaining to my mother about it, and she's like, "Don't say we don't have any milk."
오프라는 독서와 학교에서 위안을 얻었다. 외할머니의 가르침 덕분에 그녀가 읽는 책은 또래에 비해 수준이 월등히 높았고 그 때문에 몇 주 만에 유치원에서 초등학교 2학년으로 월반을 하게 됐다. 학년이 끝날 무렵 더 이상 오프라를 부양할 능력이 없음을 깨달은 버니타는 버넌 윈프리에게 전화를 걸어 딸을 내슈빌로 데려가 달라고 부탁했다.
She came to live with me. Well, it wasn't so much an adjustment. She was a sweet little girl, not well cared for. So at the time, we tried to give her the necessities. We didn't try to, well, we didn't have money to be extravagant with her as maybe some parents. So we knew that we were trying to, cleanliness is next to godliness. And she didn't have a lot of clothes, but my wife kept her clean.
오프라의 아버지와 그의 아내 젤마는 교육과 독서의 중요성을 강조했다. 오프라는 밀워키에 있을 때와 마찬가지로 와튼 초등학교에서도 두각을 나타냈다.
I think she enjoyed reading more than anything else. And of course English, but especially in reading.
It was in Miss Duncan's class that I really came into myself. Because she just let me basically do what I wanted to do. And I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid to be smart in Miss Duncan's class. And she encouraged me to read as much as I could, and she would, stay after school with me.
If I had to leave the room, of course, I didn't even have to ask her or anyone to take note of anyone who misbehaved. She just automatically did that, looking around. And I think they understood that she would be the one checking.
그 일로 같은 반 학생들은 오프라에게 본때를 보여주기로 했다.
They were going to come and beat me up after school. This is in the 3rd grade. And they'd all gathered around and they're going to meet me. We're going to kick your butt after school. And I started telling them the story of Jesus of Nazareth coming into Nazareth on the donkey. And I started talking about Elijah and Elisha and the kingdom comes and redemption and how. You know what? They left me alone. They say, this girl is crazy. This preacher woman, this crazy preacher woman. They started calling me preacher woman.
She came to me almost crying one day when she was, I think, 9 years old. The children making fun of me. I was preaching to them. I says, wait now, let's maybe just need to talk with them about God, about the Bible. But most time little girls like you don't preach.
학년 말이 되자 오프라의 어머니는 여름방학 동안 딸을 미루키로 데려가겠다고 말했다. 그러나 그 몇 달간은 몇 년이 됐고 다시 내슈빌로 돌아가기 전까지 오프라는 많은 아픔을 겪어야 했다. (1963년) 여름 당시 9살이었던 오프라는 내슈빌에 있는 아버지의 안정적인 가정을 떠나 어머니와 여름을 보내기 위해 밀워키로 돌아갔다. 그리고 여름이 끝날 무렵 아버지가 다시 데리러 갔을 때 오프라는 어머니와 살고 싶다고 했다. 버너는 뭔가 잘못됐다는 생각이 들었다.
I sat there in my little living room and thinking of the situation, knowing it wasn't the best situation for her. I shedded tears in there by myself, knowing that she wasn't in a good environment.
오랫동안 모르고 있었지만 사실 그에게는 통곡할 만한 이유가 있었다. 어머니를 기쁘게 하려고 밀워키에 남았던 딸이 대신 엄청난 대가를 치렀기 때문이다.
I stayed in Milwaukee, and that was also the summer that I was raped, the summer of the 9th year. The same summer that I made the decision I'm going to go back, I'm going to stay, but nobody knew. So I'm staying at my uncle's house. I'd been left with a 19-year-old cousin, and, you know, they didn't know. I was, you know, put in the same bed with the cousin. The cousin was left to supervise me, and he raped me. And afterwards took me for an ice cream cone and told me not to tell. And I didn't. For about, 12 more years, I didn't tell.
Did you know what was happening when it was happening?
No, absolutely not. No, I did not know. I had no idea. I don't know what I thought was happening, but I certainly did not know during the process of the actual rape. I couldn't, first he was fondling me and then kissing me, and then he was on top of me and he's naked and I can see his naked body. I'd never seen a man naked and erect before in my life. I'm 9. So, and then it just happened, you know. It happened and I was literally, torn apart. I was 9. And after it was over, I was shaking and trembling and crying and all of that, and I guess he realized that this isn't going the way I expected it to, and convinced me that it was in my best interest not to tell anybody.
Were you changed?
Yes, I think, was I changed? You are never the same. You're no longer a child, even though you don't know what this horrible thing was that happened. You have this big secret. And because you're in such pain, immediately afterwards, you think everybody that sees you can tell. I was walking funny. And afterwards, it's just this big, looming, dark secret in your heart. And you don't know what it was. I would have, nightmares about it and visions about it. I still didn't know what it was. And who are you going to talk to about it?
어린 오프라는 그 후로도 5년간 친지들에게 성적인 학대를 받았다. 하지만 그녀는 그러한 사실을 누구에게도 알리지 않았다.
I don't think it's the physicalness of the act itself that destroys you. it is the secrets and lies. It's who you have to become in order to bury that inside yourself. It's the shame of being a bad girl. It's the shame of somehow believing, as I did for a long time, into my late 30s and early 40s, that somehow I had caused it, that perhaps maybe there was something in me that men saw that they could just take advantage of.
오프라는 사생활에 대한 수치심을 이겨내기 위해 누구보다도 학교 생활을 충실히 했다. 그녀는 능력을 통해 실력을 인정받을 수 있는 학교와 교회가 좋았다. 그리고 틈만 나면 독서의 세계에 빠져들었는데 그녀의 어머니는 이러한 습관을 달가워하지 않았다.
She would be sitting at home reading a book, which is typical of Oprah as we know her to date, 8 years old. And, you know, her mom would come bop her on the head and say, put that book down, go outside and play.
Well, I wanted her to, you know, get among the children and play and things like that, but she just didn't want to. I know one time we was having a party for someone, I just can't remember the name right now, but when I went and found Oprah, she had her Bible, reading her Bible, and everybody else was dancing and having fun.
그러나 독서에 대한 애정은 그녀에게 큰 기회를 가져다 주었다. 카페테리아에서 매일 책 읽는 모습을 지켜보던 링컨 고등학교 교사의 추천으로 미러키에서도 손꼽히는 백인 상류층 사립고등학교에 장학생으로 다니게 된 것이다. 오프라는 68년도 니콜라이 고등학교의 몇 안 되는 흑인 학생 중 하나였다. 학교까지는 버스를 3번이나 갈아타야 했는데 어머니나 그 동료들이 출근길이나 퇴근길에 태워다 줄 때가 많았다.
And I'm in this world where kids are going to the pizza parlor afterwards and they all have money and they have allowances and it's just an entirely different world. It's a world that I thought only happened on TV. And so I would go to my mom and ask my mom for, like, I need some extra money because the kids are going to go and I'm always the one who doesn't have any. Well, we didn't have it. And she said, we don't have it. You don't have it.
14살의 오프라 윈프리는 낮에는 부잣집 백인 학생들과 보조를 맞추려 애쓰고 밤에는 성적 학대로 고통받았다. 그러다 어머니의 돈을 훔치고 문란한 생활을 하기 시작했다. 집에 도둑이 들었다며 자신의 안경까지 부러뜨리는 바람에 어머니가 유행에 맞는 새 안경을 사줘야 했던 일도 있었다. 오프라는 경찰이 출동하자 기억상실인 척했고 병원에까지 가게 됐다. 그러나 어머니는 한눈에 딸의 거짓말을 눈치챘다.
And I said, were you hurt? No, not really, but he hit me on the head. So I can't remember anything. I said, you can't remember anything? And she says, no. I said, I bet you can.
She says, well, I'm going to count to 3 to see if your memory improves. So she gets to 2. She goes, 1, 2. She's going to go, it's coming back to me now. You're my mother. You're my mother. And she says, get your ass out of this bed right now because you are costing me money. We can't afford to pay for a hospital. So I was exposed.
그리고 그해 여름, 오프라는 점점 더 반항적인 아이가 됐다.
That summer, I had gone back to Nashville for a short time and was driven by my uncle. And ended up having sex with my uncle on the way to Nashville at the age of 13 or 14. And then just came back and felt horrible about myself and just literally ran the streets. I ran away from home after sexual abuse from my uncle. I just kind of lost it and became what I pictured as a bad girl. I just got into more and more and more and more trouble. I couldn't seem to keep myself out of trouble.
오프라가 계속해서 말썽을 일으키자 그녀의 어머니는 마침내 한계에 다다랐고 결국 딸을 소년원에 보내기로 결심했다. 그러나 소년원에 빈자리가 없어 2주를 기다려야 했는데 오프라의 어머니는 그때까지 참고 기다릴 수 없는 상태였다.
And she said she couldn't wait 2 weeks, that she had to get me out now, that she couldn't stand being with me another day. And so she called my father. And that was my saving grace.
버논은 오프라를 다시 내슈빌로 데려갔고 마침내 그녀는 14년간의 불안정한 생활과 학대에서 벗어나 정상적인 가정에서 살게 됐다. 그러나 오프라가 더 이상 예전의 착한 딸이 아니라는 것을 깨닫는 데는 그리 오랜 시간이 걸리지 않았다.
She came back to me as an unruly child. I can't handle her. So I've used this expression: if someone gives you a horse or a biting dog or whatever, you're going to have to watch that dog very close because it might snap you. So I had to learn her all over again.
오프라는 비행 청소년이 됐을 뿐 아니라 커다란 비밀 하나를 안고 돌아왔다. 그녀는 임신 중이었다.
And my father had said, I would rather see a daughter of mine floating down the Cumberland River than bring shame to this family. And now I've got to hide the pregnancy from my father and stepmother. Because they hadn't been around me, they didn't know what size I was. So I wore big sweaters and I wore, I'd be sitting up in the house with my coat on. I'm cold. And and I'd go to church and I'd still sit in that second pew and wouldn't take my coat off.
그러나 임신 7개월째에 접어들어 의사에게 가지 않을 수 없게 되자 아버지에게도 더 이상 사실을 숨길 수 없었다.
The hardest thing I've ever had to do was to go home to my father, very proud, honorable man, and because my stepmother was with me in the doctor's office, and say, I'm pregnant.
It just wasn't a part of our family to come up daughters and somebody having babies out of wedlock. I think I had told one or two of my friends trying to prepare myself for the baby coming. Some friend or two wanted to know whether you want to have an abortion. We thought about it and they talked about, some place that people send the babies off. So I thought of all of that. Then I just decided whenever it comes, I'll just have my grandson or granddaughter. Let nature take its course.
그러나 아버지에게 임신 사실을 털어놔야 한다는 부담감은 어린 오프라의 출산에 나쁜 영향을 미쳤고 미숙아로 태어난 그녀의 아들은 결국 2주 만에 세상을 떠나고 말았다. 아들의 죽음은 오프라에게 끝인 동시에 새로운 시작을 의미했다.
I took it as a great opportunity, not as a loss, but as an opportunity. That this means that you're supposed to go on and do other things with your life, and you're not going to be a mother. And that may be part of why I still haven't been. I don't know what kind of mother I would have been. I don't know. I do certainly know that my entire life, including sitting here talking to you right now, probably would not have happened. It just would have taken a different course. All the things that then later, helped propel me into this, great career would not have happened.
오프라는 새 인생을 시작할 기회를 얻었고 그 기회를 헛되이 낭비하지 않기로 마음먹었다. 그녀는 교내의 스타로 떠올랐다. 연설 연기대회에서 상을 받고 교내 연극제에도 나갔고 반을 대표하는 임원이 되기도 했다. 그리고 16살 때에는 흑인으로선 최초로 내슈빌 화재 예방 미인대회에서 우승을 하기도 했다. 그녀가 지역 라디오 방송국인 WVOL에서 상을 받게 됐을 때 주최 측에선 목소리 테스트를 포함한 방송국 견학을 주선했다. 그녀의 목소리에 깊은 인상을 받은 관계자들은 방송사 간부에게 이 사실을 전했다.
I listened to Oprah, and it was just something that, like magic, just struck you. You said, "Hey, what is this?" And they said, she was reading, and she hardly looked down on the paper, and I heard a voice, and I said, "Gee, this girl really sounds good."
그는 그 즉시 17살 난 오프라에게 방과 후 매일 정오마다 뉴스를 읽게 했다. 직업은 갖게 됐지만 아직은 10대 소녀였기 때문에 그녀의 아버지는 딸에 대한 감시를 게을리하지 않았다.
I gave a little speech once that says history has a way of repeating itself. And I didn't want history to repeat itself. No, I just felt like it under my roof, 16, 17 years old. If the party went on to 2 or 3 o'clock, you don't need to stay until the party is over. you need to be home 11:30 or 12 o'clock. Because if you hadn't had any fun by 12, most time trouble happens if you stay until it's over.
오프라는 10대 시절의 실수를 되풀이하지 않았다. 그리고 몇 년 후에는 자신의 천직을 만나게 된다. 1971년 고등학교를 졸업한 후 오프라는 내슈빌에 있는 테네시 주립대학에 진학했다. 전공은 연설과 연기였지만 사실 그녀의 꿈은 제2의 바바라 월터스가 되는 것이었다. 이런 그녀에게 내슈빌의 TV 방송국이 계속해서 이를 의뢰해 왔지만 오프라는 학교 수업을 핑계로 이를 거절했다.
And I remember being in W. Dury Cox's class. I was sitting in a class with Mr. Cox. And I got a phone call at the school. And I came back to his class and said, this guy keeps bothering me from...
This TV
This
guy.
TV guy keeps bothering me, and I've already told him that I can't because there's no way I can get my classes arranged. And W. Dury Cox says to me, what a fool. You're just a fool. You're a fool. College hasn't done you a bit of good. He says, because that is why people go to school, fool, so that CBS can call them. You better go call him back. Well, I don't know if my dad's going to let me. I don't know if my dad is going to let me.
다행히 그녀의 아버지는 이를 허락했고 오프라는 19살에 앵커우먼이 됐다. 오프라는 그때부터 이미 오늘날 트레이드마크가 된 두 가지 습관을 갖고 있었다. 그녀는 뉴스에 감정을 개입시키는 한편 자연스러움을 중요시했는데 뉴스 전달자에게 이런 습관은 늘 장점일 수는 없었다.
What's your reaction to all of this, first of all?
Her biggest problem was she had a soft spot for people. If there was a story about a house burning down and people being displaced, well, she would worry more about the people and what's going to happen to them than writing the story and getting it on the air. And I would tell you, you can worry about them after the 6 o'clock news. Let's get this story on with the 6 o'clock news, And she would do it, but you could tell her mind was with people.
I had this bad habit of not preparing for the copy because I love the idea of being spontaneous. And one night I, mispronounced something that was so obvious that I cracked myself up. Like I was reading this whole list of, countries, and Canada was in there, and I was rolling my R's for, Rio de Janeiro, and I get to Canada and I said Canada, and then I realized, oh my goodness, that's Canada. Excuse me, folks, it's Canada.
전통의 틀을 깬 뉴스 보도는 WLAC 시청자들의 호응을 얻었다. 1973년은 흑인 앵커우먼이 사람들의 비난과 항의를 불러일으킬 만한 시기였지만 시청자들은 인종을 초월해 한 인간으로서 그녀에게 매료된 듯했다.
There was no protest to having an African-American woman on the air, the first one. And I was ready for it. I mean, people liked her from the word go. It was just something about her. When you look at her today, that's exactly what she was doing when she was here.
그로부터 3년 후 21살이 된 오프라는 볼티모어의 WJG 방송국에서 저녁 뉴스의 공동 진행을 맡게 됐다.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oprah Winfrey is with us today.
Well, Steve, it's a different kind of...
그러나 오프라는 시작부터 방송사 간부들과 마찰을 빚었다. 그들은 그녀의 뉴스 전달 방식뿐 아니라 특히 외모에 큰 불만을 나타냈다.
The news director had come to me and said, your eyes are too far apart. First of all, your hair is too thick. It's affecting the chroma key. And your eyes are too far apart. And your nose is too wide. And you need to do something about your chin. Maybe you can do some kind of, I don't know if you need surgery. This news director says to me, assistant news director. But you need to get a makeover. And you need to do it now. So they sent me to New York. And I asked the guy at this very shishi-poo-poo salon, do you do black hair here? Oui, madame, we do black hair, we do red hair, we do blonde hair, we do your hair. So I let this shishi-poo-poo guy put on a French perm on my black hair in 1977 that ended up taking out every single strand of my hair. Every single strand of my hair.
방송사 간부들 입장에서는 머리카락이 하나도 없는 앵커우먼을 방송에 내보낼 수는 없는 일이었다. 결국 77년 만우절날 오프라는 자신이 저녁 뉴스 앵커 자리에서 빠지게 됐다는 통보를 받았다.
It was funny because they said, you have such a personality. We want to give you your own show so you can really sparkle. And, she's thinking, yeah, great. Her own show turned out to be morning cut-ins and weekends, which, in the news business, that's a big demotion. So she goes from the 6 o'clock anchor to her own show having cut-ins.
So it took me a moment for it to dawn on me, this is a severe demotion. You are in bad shape, girl. And it only disheartened me because I felt some shame that I had not done as well as I thought that I should have done.
And you squeeze it and you twist it.
다행히 새로 부임한 국장은 오프라가 뉴스에 적합치 않다는 것을 알아차리고 그녀에게 어울리는 프로를 생각해냈다. 신설될 모닝쇼 피프라 토킹이 그것이었다.
The most interesting thing, though, to me was when I first came to her and said, Oprah, I think you'd be a terrific talk show host. She looked me in the eye and tears came into her eyes, literally, and she said, Bill, I'm a news person. I want to do the news. I don't want to do this soft stuff. I'm not interested in becoming a talk show host.
Or one assumes that lovemaking is more than just a physical exchange.
불안해하면서 그 제안을 수락한 오프라는 토크쇼 진행이 자신에게 너무나 잘 맞는다는 사실에 놀라지 않을 수 없었다.
If American women are lousy lovers, it is because their partners, American men, are lousy.
It takes two, yeah.
The day I did that talk show, I felt like I'd come home. I felt like it was the most natural thing I'd ever done. It felt like breathing. It felt like you can just say what you want to say. If you don't feel like talking about that, you can talk about something else.
I met Oprah back in 1978. Both of us were working at a station in Baltimore called WJZ. She was funny. She struggled with her weight, so a lot of the show was her being very honest with that struggle, which millions of people, obviously, particularly women, could identify with. And she was very open about telling people about it, whereas I would say, I don't have a weight problem. We're not, we're eating all healthy. She'd go right up and go, I ate 2 bowls of French fries last night. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I was always like, don't tell everybody that. And yet that was her, that was her charm. That was her signature.
프로그램은 성공적이었고 시청자들과 WJG의 관계자들은 오프라에게 열광했다. 피프라 토킹은 곧 최대 라이벌인 빌 도나휴 쇼를 시청률에서 앞섰다. 오프라는 이 프로를 6년간 진행했다. 그러나 20대가 끝날 무렵 그녀의 마음은 또다시 들썩이기 시작했다. 시카고에 있는 옛 동료가 새로운 일을 제안해 왔을 때 오프라는 또다시 직장을 옮길 것을 고민했다. 그리고 노동절 연휴가 지나자 그녀는 시카고로 날아가 AM 시카고의 진행자 오디션을 치렀다.
And we did a full 1-hour audition. And as I'm sitting in my office with the feed pipe down there, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I'm not this lucky. This is the greatest audition tape I have ever seen.
Oprah, spelled O-P-R-A-H, and if you noticed, it's Harpo spelled backwards. My folks did not particularly like Harpo Marx. We did not even have a television set in our home for a number of years. Originally, I was named from the Bible by Aunt Ida, who named me from Ruth, the 1st chapter and the 14th verse, Orpha, but no one knew how to spell in my home, and that's why it ended up being Oprah.
She came down after the show, and she said, or after the audition, she said, what do you think? And I said, well, I think it went pretty well.
I said to him, well, I'm black. He goes, I'm looking at you. And I have these kind of weight issues. I've been trying to lose weight. He goes, and so have I. And he goes, nobody around here is going to complain about that. So I'm like, so you're not going to tell me that I have to lose so many pounds? No.
I said, but I do have a concern. Whoa, Oprah, she goes, yeah. And I said, yes. And I went over and I measured her head on her shoulders. She said, what are you doing? I said, your head fits very nicely on your shoulders. I said, I just want to make sure that when this great success befalls you, that it will always stay there. And she said, do you really think I could be that successful? I said, yes, I do. And I said, I will call your attorney next week, and we'll see what we can work out. And that's just about how it happened.
How did you get started? How did I get started? That's very good.
그 오디션을 계기로 오프라에게는 완전히 새로운 길이 열리게 됐다. 그것은 시카고보다 더 큰 무대로 통하는 길이었다. 볼티모어를 떠나 시카고에서 30대를 맞은 오프라 윈프리는 WLS 방송국의 생방송 아침 프로인 AM 시카고에 새로운 진행자로 등장했다.
We went to a party right after she got there, and we sat in the corner, and she didn't really know anybody in the town, and I didn't either. And I was like, oh my God, can you believe you're going to come here and, like, you know, do the show by yourself? That's so terrifying. And I think while she was scared, she walked into her fear.
오프라는 아는 사람 하나 없는 낯선 도시에서 시청률 최하위 프로그램을 맡게 됐다. 당시 최대 경쟁자는 톡쇼의 제왕 빌 도나휴였는데 그는 전미 최고 시청률을 자랑하던 토크쇼의 진행자이자 홈타운인 시카고 무대를 16년간이나 평정한 인물이었다. 때문에 WLS조차 오프라가 그를 이길 거라고는 기대하지 않았다.
I'm glad you called. Are you there? Hello. Go ahead.
Donahue was then what Oprah is today. I mean, he was the acknowledged leader in the industry. Nobody that ever went against him ever beat him. He owned the daytime television talk business. So anybody that tried to go against him, unless you were a game show or something like that, virtually was committing suicide.
Oh, Phil Donahue, I mean, he definitely paved the way for Oprah. But he did it with a more intense, hard-nosed, journalistic approach. People, when they went on Phil's show, were a little like relieved it was over, because he could grill you in a very good way. But she made people feel comfortable, and that was the difference. And I think that's what people wanted and have continued to want.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Oprah Winfrey, the new host of AM Chicago, and I am.
오프라는 1984년 1월 2일 AM 시카고의 새로운 진행자로 나섰다. 그리고 2월 말 AM 시카고는 필 도나휴 쇼를 시청률 1위 자리에서 밀어냈다.
I did see you walking down the 8th floor hallway one time, but you were going to the men's room, so I didn't stop you.
Coward.
오프라는 시청자들에게 자신의 문제를 스스럼 없이 털어놓는 TV 속 친구와 같은 존재였다.
I almost had it too.
I admitted early on about my, weight issues because I'm sitting there interviewing, models and stuff, trying to act like I don't know what a diet is. And, oh, really? That's interesting. So I remember being on, talking to somebody about it, some models, I love these models these gorgeous girls who are talking about all of their flaws and how fat their thighs are. And I go, I can show you a fat thigh, honey. And people just sort of responded to it. And it never occurred to me that I was, creating anything other than just allowing myself to be an extension of myself.
It was unbelievable. And at the time, Harold Washington was mayor in Chicago, and we were invited over to City Hall, which was a couple of blocks from the television station. And Oprah and I walked over to City Hall together, which was in the middle of the day. And people they were handing her dollar bills to autograph, any scrap of paper they could find. This was literally within 2 weeks of putting her on the air. And we won the February book. I mean, 1 month later, we won the February book, going from last to first. It was remarkable.
And you just wrapped me in your arms like the world's best welcome. Thank you so much. This is from me to you.
Everybody loves Oprah. She's fun, she's hip, she's really got her style.
시카고의 시청자들은 오프라를 사랑했고 그녀는 시카고를 사랑했다. 마침내 제 집을 찾은 것이다. 사람들은 거리에서도 그녀에게 환호를 보냈다. 그리고 그녀와 얘기를 나눈 사람은 어김없이 컬러 퍼플을 읽었느냐는 질문을 받았다.
I would carry a backpack and walk to work, just in case I ran into some nice, friendly folks who hadn't read the book. Honest to goodness. And I'd be right there crossing their Wrigley building, and I'd like, have you read The Color Purple, ma'am? I mean, it's like preacher woman from the 3rd grade. So I would give them to everybody. It was mandatory in my office. You could not work for me if you hadn't read it. because we couldn't have discussions about it, what we're going to talk about. So I'd heard that they were going to be doing a movie about it.
Happy holidays!
드디어 그녀의 인생의 중요한 순간이 다가왔다. 영화 제작자 중 한 사람이 당시 시카고에 머물고 있었는데 TV에서 우연히 오프라 쇼를 보게 된 것이다.
And I think the first thing that I saw, I didn't even click to change the channels, and I saw this face, and it just blew me away. I didn't know what her background was or anything about her at the time. When I looked at Oprah's face, I said, that's Sophia, there's no doubt about it.
오디션을 치른 후 초조하게 결과를 기다리던 오프라에게 마침내 캐스팅이 결정됐다는 소식이 전해졌다.
It was a call saying, get to California. Reuben Cannon saying, Steven Spielberg wants to see you tomorrow in California in his office. And I hear you're at some fat farm. If you've lost a pound, you could lose his part. So I think I might be in danger now. So let me stop at the Dairy Queen on the way out of here.
85년 1월, 오프라는 캘리포니아 북부에 있는 촬영장에서 자신의 첫 씬을 준비하고 있었다.
First day, first scene in that movie, the first scene that we shot, we come into, it's the juke joint scene, where Steven had found this guy who was also a boxer. He'd never acted either. And just before we go to do the scene, absolute true story, the guy turns to me and he says, who is this Spielberg dude? I don't know, he's walking around here like he's the king of the mountain. Who's this guy? I go, well, he is kind of the king of the mountain, you know, he is. He's a director. He's, you know, I said, he's, you know, Jaws, he's E.T., he says, who'd he play in E.T.? Now, this is the guy I'm looking to help me. He says to me, who did he play in E.T.? I go, oh boy, I am in big trouble, big trouble. So I walk in, and my scene is, well, Miss Seeley, it's so good to see you. Miss Seeley, it sure is good to see you. Honey. Now, I've been in TV all my life. So I walk in and I look straight for the camera and I say, well, Miss Seeley, it's so good to see you. Cut. Alan Davio, Steven, they're like, what are you doing? I just said, well, Miss Seeley, it's so good to see you. He said, you don't look in the camera. What are you looking in the camera for? So I go and write my journal that night. I know I'm going to be kicked off the movie because now they realize she is so green. She knows nothing we can find, and we have plenty of time to find someone else. Every night I felt that.
그러나 그녀는 쫓겨나기는커녕 아카데미 최우수 여우조연상 후보에까지 올랐다.
Isn't that so typical, though, of how Oprah's life goes? You know, not only does she get the role of her dreams because, you know, she was so in love with the book Color Purple. Not only does she, you know, she just wanted to have any role in that movie, anything, behind the scenes, in front of the camera, because she loved Alice Walker's book so much. So isn't it typical that not only does she get a part in the movie, but then she's nominated for an Academy Award the very first time?
비록 수상에는 실패했지만 그 해가 끝날 무렵엔 더 큰 행운이 그녀를 기다리고 있었다. 더 많은 기회와 부를 얻게 됐을 뿐 아니라 이를 함께 나눌 동반자를 만나게 됐기 때문이다. 32살이 된 오프라는 꾸준히 데이트를 하면서 계속해서 이상형의 남자를 찾고 있었다. 그녀는 당시 좋은 남자를 찾고 있다고 했는데 단 흑인이어야 한다는 조건도 늘 따라다녔다. 1986년 봄 마침내 그 이상형이 나타났다. 오프라는 키가 큰 미남 마케팅 전문가 스테드먼 그레이엄과 데이트를 시작했다.
I remember, you know, seeing Stedman at a party going, who is that? Because, you know, he's a good-looking man. He doesn't like to discuss that, but he is. And she goes, oh, that's just Stedman. I mean, they were friends.
I'll tell you, here's the question that's come in from one of the people who has joined us here. Noreen wants to know about this guy whose picture was in People magazine with you. Who is this boyfriend?
Who is he?
Yeah.
Well, his name is Stedman Graham, and I guess you could say I'm in love. Mm-hmm.
We were over a friend's house together one night, and we started talking, and we went and from there went to a restaurant afterwards, I think downstairs somewhere from the friend's house, and from then on, we started dating.
86년 여름, 오프라는 스테드먼과 데이트할 시간조차 없었다. 시카고에서의 그녀의 인기가 전국에서도 통할지 시험해보기로 결정됐기 때문이다.
Let's talk about the White House. What are your favorite rooms in the White House?
WLS의 스태프들은 9월에 있을 오프라 윈프리 쇼의 전국 데뷔를 앞두고 눈코 뜰 새 없이 바빴다.
I came and signed a deal for syndication during the filming of The Color Purple, and had no, particular expectation for it, particularly in terms of getting rich. That's all everybody was telling me. You're going to be so rich. Roger King.
The syndicator who put the show.
The syndicators who put it on said, you're going to make so much money. And my experience was, well, okay.
First time I met her, I told her, I said, Oprah, you're going to go on to fame and riches more than you ever dreamt. And would you always return my phone call? That was the complete statement.
So you're going to go on national television and not A, be worried about failure, or B, be nervous about it?
No, I really wasn't. I really wasn't. Mainly because we had been in Chicago and had been so solidly in Chicago. We'd had a whole year and a half focus group and had spent the time, this was the great Roger King and Michael King strategy, to put it on so that it's the same time everywhere. So that if your cousin's watching in Idaho, she can call somebody else in Memphis, and she can call somebody else in Rhode Island, and there's a whole big connection as opposed to being on late at night or being on in different time slots. That was what was brilliant about it. I thought we only got one, Roger could tell you this, I think there was one guy in Iowa, who said he could get a better rating with potato than putting a black woman on the air.
And I couldn't believe it in 1986 that you'd have those kind of conversations. But I was flabbergasted and couldn't wait to get out of that station. And funny thing is, I won't tell you the station, but it did a 58 share of the market. And we charged them 10 times more the following time. That was our way of getting back at them.
Thank you. I'm Oprah Winfrey, and welcome to the very first National Oprah Winfrey Show!
86년 9월 8일, 미국 전역에 있는 138개의 방송국들은 일제히 오프라 윈프리 쇼의 첫 전국 방송을 내보냈다.
Decided to do what we do best, and that is a show about and with everyday people.
그동안의 계획과 준비 과정은 충분히 보상받았다. 오프라 쇼의 시청자가 금세 1000만 명을 돌파했던 것이다. 시카고의 여성들처럼 다른 지역의 여성들 역시 그들의 새로운 친구인 오프라를 열렬히 환영해 주었다.
Because she is every woman, every man. She has something about her that number one, she does something that most people don't have a clue of how to do. She knows how to listen. She really can listen. And she listens not with just her head, she listens with her heart and soul.
She's loose, she's warm, she's surprising, she's emotional. She asks the questions that you want answered. I've been on her show as a guest. So I've been interviewed by a lot of people. There is no one who has held my gaze so intensely, except for maybe Fidel Castro or Bill Clinton, interviewing leaders of countries. She is so similar in that way. She grasps onto you. She just locks onto your eyes, and you're with her.
전국 방송이 되면서 오프라는 더 많은 시청자와 더 많은 수입을 얻게 됐다. 88년 말까지 그녀의 쇼는 1억 2,500만 달러를 벌어들였고 그중 3천만 달러가 그녀의 몫으로 돌아갔다. 34살의 오프라는 더 이상 미시시피 농장의 가난한 소녀가 아니었다. 그러나 그녀는 미국 토크쇼의 여왕 자리에 만족하지 않고 곧 흑인 여성으로서는 최초로 대형 스튜디오의 소유주가 됐다. 오프라 윈프리는 33살의 나이에 미국 최고의 토크쇼 진행자가 된 동시에 수천만 달러의 재산가가 됐다.
Did you have any idea you would connect with people the way you did?
One of the things that I have learned and had learned, knew at that time, that we are certainly all more alike than we are different, and that different regions do not make us have different regions in our heart. I absolutely understood that I, in some way, because I was willing to open up my own self and, just tell the truth about myself, that is what made other people respond to want the truth for themselves.
If you meet her on the street, and people will do this all the time and come up to her and just start talking and sharing life stories, I don't really believe that other talk show people or other celebrities get that from the public. You know, people feel very comfortable saying, "Hey, Oprah, get over here." I mean, and you just think, gosh, you know, it doesn't bother her. Sometimes she'll even go, you know, "Could you sign this for my so-and-so?" People feel a real sense of connection to her. And really being with her is really quite contagious in terms of you want to do better, you want to be better, because you can feel that's what she wants for you, too.
This is an unlawful assembly. Not unlawful assembly. On the sidewalk.
그러나 진실을 추구하는 그녀의 방식에 모든 사람이 동의하는 건 아니었다. 그녀는 조지아주 포사이스 카운티에서 생방송을 진행하기로 해 흑인 사회에 논란을 일으켰다. 포사이스 카운티는 1912년 이래 흑인은 거주할 수 없도록 금지한 곳이었기 때문이다. 그러나 오프라는 그곳에서의 토크쇼를 계획했을 뿐 아니라 방청객도 카운티의 백인 주민들로 제한을 두었다.
The purpose of the show was to go into this all-white county and find out why. How does this exist in contemporary America? So when the black advocates asked for an audience on the show to participate, her answer was, that's not what this show is about. It's all about understanding from this community why in this day and age this still exists.
Well, doggone it, look who's here.
But I gave her a lot of credit for standing up and saying, no, this is the theme of the show, and I'm not going to put you on just because you want to come on and say something when that's not the program that we're going to do. We'll do that another time.
My position was, and still is, that to argue whether or not we have the right as black people to live here is an argument that has already been guaranteed by the Civil Rights Acts of 64, 65, and 68. So to say we should be here, of course we should be here. The question is, why aren't we here? And that's what we came here, is to try to have that question answered. Why aren't we here?
그전부터 몇몇 흑인들은 부자가 된 오프라가 백인 상류층과 지나치게 어울린다고 생각하고 있었다.
I've read in the early days about, you know, she would get criticized from people that said, well, you hug the white people more than the black people. Who do you think you are? Well, she gets in the mirror every day and sees a black face staring back at her. I've never understood that. Because anybody that knows her knows how committed she is. You know, she sees herself as a human being. And that's what she is.
You're not just anti-black, you're also anti-gay, too.
I'm opposed to communism, race mixing, and low morals, and homosexuals are of low morals, in my opinion.
오프라가 흑인에 대한 방청객들의 의견에 이의를 제기할 때는 팽팽한 긴장감이 감돌기도 했다.
You don't believe that people of other races have the right to live here?
They have the right to live wherever they want to, but we have the right to choose if we want a white community also. That's why we moved here.
You believe? That's what you believe. Excuse me. Yes.
언론의 관심을 끈 것은 그녀의 프로그램만이 아니었다. 당시에는 그녀의 행동 하나하나가 모두 뉴스거리였다. 사생활도 마찬가지였기 때문에 오프라와 스테드먼은 이에 대처하는 법을 배워야 했다.
Well, we kind of grew in it together because she wasn't doing national television when we started dating, and so the tabloids and all of the things that were new to her were also new to me, and we kind of grew into this whole, what is this? And it was very difficult for me and also difficult for her, but we were together and we got through the rough times really together.
유명세에 시달려도 좋은 게 한 가지 있다면 그건 바로 권력일 것이다. 88년 신디케이트 조직에 관한 계약을 갱신할 시기가 되자 오프라가 자연히 주도적인 입장에 놓이게 됐다. 돈보다 나은 걸 원했던 그녀는 프로그램에 대한 소유권을 자신의 프로덕션인 하포에 넘겨줄 것을 요구했다.
And that was a seminal moment because when you get ownership of your own program and control your own destiny, from that point on, she was basically able to do what she wanted to do and how she wanted to do it and follow her own guts and her own instincts in terms of what she thought people would want to see.
오프라는 토크쇼의 제작까지 겸할 결심을 하게 된다. 그녀는 $2,000,000를 들여 시카고 중심가에 위치한 스튜디오를 구입해 새롭게 단장했다. 흑인 여성으로서는 최초로 자기 소유의 스튜디오를 갖게 된 것이다.
And to me, you know, as amazing as what goes on the screen is, it's like, wait a minute, you're putting on 200, 300 shows a year, and you've somehow got the drive and the wherewithal and the vision even to say, I'm going to build a studio. I mean, you know, some of us can't even keep our offices clean, and she builds this huge studio production facility and makes it a success.
하포 프로덕션에서는 토크쇼 외에 다른 계획도 진행됐다. 뭔가 의미 있는 작품들을 만들고자 했던 독서광 오프라 윈프리는 자신이 좋아하는 책들을 영상으로 옮길 계획을 세웠다. 하프 프로덕션의 첫 번째 프로젝트는 소설 브루스터가의 여인들의 TV 영화화였다.
There's always something standing in the way of good.
영화는 좋은 평가를 얻어 시리즈로까지 제작됐지만 저조한 시청률 때문에 4편을 끝으로 종영됐다. 90년대 초 오프라와 그녀의 토크쇼는 저속한 소재의 다른 낮 시간대 토크쇼에 도전을 받았다.
I know that he's proud to be on my leash, and I'd like him to tell you that. Tell him, Joseph.
I do not feel...
That's a privilege.
I do not feel degraded.
You were pregnant and he was only coming by to have sex with you?
이들은 점점 더 자극적인 소재로 시청률 경쟁을 벌였고 오프라의 쇼도 결국 이에 동참했다.
We are going to talk with a woman who insists that she has seen Elvis in her very own neighborhood at the Burger King.
오프라는 악마 숭배자, 신나치주의자, 매춘부들과도 인터뷰를 했다.
And it's funny, when we look at some of the titles that she did, we can't believe she did it. And I remember, I watch the show all the time. I tape it every day. And I look at old shows and I go, wow, I can't believe he used to do that kind of stuff. Because looking back on it, it does seem kind of sleazy. But it's like when you were presenting it, it didn't seem so sleazy.
브라운관 밖에서의 오프라는 결코 가볍지 않은 싸움을 하고 있었다. 1991년 그녀는 변호사를 통해 성범죄자의 신상을 국가에 등록시키는 법안을 통과시키고자 노력했다. 이는 의회에 상정됐다.
I'm glad to be here because the senator has done so much work on this legislation. I started only this past spring to get really concerned enough to want to do something other than just